Court is in session.
Please be seated. Mr. President, if the attorneys and the jury is all in the jury box accounted for, now we would remind the witness she remains under oath.
Your Honor, before we resume questioning, on the break I was able to obtain those reports that we discussed, and I would offer at this time Joint Exhibit number 71, which are the laboratory reports authored by Lisa Orlitz.
71's received.
Now, Ms. Orlitz, before we went on break, I believe we were at the point where I was going to start asking you what presumptive testing you did inside the residence.
Yes.
Inside the residence. Could you tell us first, was there any presumptive testing that was performed in the foyer?
There was presumptive testing done on the door tray between the foyer and the dining room.
And was that of the stains that we observed in the slide on the door tray?
Yes.
And what were the results of that presumptive testing?
They did not indicate the possible presence of blood, so they were negative.
And what did you do next with respect to the presumptive testing? Was there any further testing done on that?
Not on the door tray, no.
And what item of evidence did you look at next or test next?
The crime scene team viewed the baseball bat with a bright light and looked for any sort of red-brown staining on it.
And was there any staining on it that was observable with the bright light?
Yes, and it was tested with tetramethylbenzidine, and those results were negative.
Any further presumptive testing on that piece of evidence?
Not at that time, no, but it was collected and taken back to the laboratory.
And why did you collect it and take it back to the laboratory?
I wanted to take off the metal plate and see if I could find anything underneath it.
And what area of what did you test next?
I believe the ceiling was tested next with luminol.
And what was the results of that presumptive testing?
There were some areas of chemiluminescence observed, so some ceiling tiles were taken down and taken back to the laboratory.
And what did you process next?
The carpet was sprayed with luminol.
And is that the carpeting that we viewed in those slides, or in the slide where the carpet was pulled back?
Yes.
Was there more than one area of carpeting that was sprayed with luminol?
Yes.
How much of the carpeting was sprayed with luminol?
The entire carpet in the dining room was sprayed with luminol.
And where were the areas of carpeting that you specifically that you tested?
There was an area of carpet between the dining room and the living room that was torn back, tested, and taken back to the laboratory. The area of carpet underneath the ceiling tiles was taken back to the laboratory, and the piece of carpet, which you saw in the photo near the shelving unit in the dining room, was taken back to the laboratory.
And you indicated that those tested positive with luminol. Did you do any other presumptive testing on scene with those items?
The carpet was pulled back, and I looked for any obvious red-brown staining. Most of the carpet tested negative. There was one area on one piece of carpet that tested positive.
Was there something that you did with respect to the doorknob in the dining room?
Ma'am, we have a juror here who has difficulty hearing, so would you keep your voice up, please?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
The door between the foyer and the dining room was also sprayed with luminol.
And did that luminesce?
Yes, it did.
And what did you do with that, if anything?
The door was taken off of the hinges and the screwdriver from the doorknob was taken back to the laboratory to be examined further.
Did you examine any other items with bright light?
There was a circular saw on the shelving unit in the dining room that was viewed with a bright light. The medieval weapons that were in the upstairs bedroom were also viewed with a bright light.
And what were the results of the viewing with a bright light?
No staining was observed on the medieval evil type weapons, except for an axe, and further testing was negative.
So did you then proceed to the Ford F-150 pickup truck?
Yes.
And what did you do with respect to the pickup truck?
The interior was sprayed with luminol.
And was there a positive reaction?
It was a positive reaction, but it was a reaction that is typically seen as a false positive reaction. It was a very faint reaction that we typically see with smoke. The reaction with blood is usually very bright and lingers for a long period of time, and this is not what was observed.
So you took items back to the lab, and those items included the doorknob, the screw, the hinges, the carpeting, the ceiling tiles. Is there anything, oh, in the back, is that correct?
That is correct.
I want to move now to record number 13. Oh, did you also receive an item from that was seized by the police department for you to take back to the lab?
Yes, it did.
And what was that item?
A gun was received at the laboratory.
So in record number 13, did you process or receive some items in the laboratory to process?
Yes, all the items that came back from the scene, so the ceiling tiles and the carpet and the bat, were all taken back and examined, and that gun was examined at that time as well.
With respect to the ceiling tiles, what did you do with the ceiling tiles?
The ceiling tiles were further examined, paint scrapings and swabs were taken of the different areas that had that spotty pattern on it, and all those tests were negative.
So there was, after further testing, there was no presence of blood?
That is correct.
What did you do with respect to the baseball bat?
The metal plate was taken off, I unscrewed it, and I tested it for the possible presence of blood, and my results were positive, but it did not indicate any human blood.
And what did you do with respect to the carpet?
The carpet was, again, used with bright light, and it was further tested with tetramethylbenzidine and hemosticks, which is the other presumptive test, and those results were all negative.
And is that true for all of the carpeting that was?
Yes, they were all negative at the laboratory.
What, if anything, did you do with respect to the screws and the hinges?
I viewed those under a stereoscope. A stereoscope is a microscope that has a low magnifying power, which means that essentially it acts as an adjustable magnifying glass. It allows me to zoom in on an object and see it in closer detail. So all those items were viewed under the stereoscope, and I looked for any sort of red-brown staining. And any staining that was observed tested negative.
So those items tested positive at the scene. Did you also use tetramethylbenzidine on those items? Did you just say that they tested negative?
Yes, they tested negative.
Okay. It's been a long week for us. With respect to the revolver or gun, if I may approach your honor. I'm showing you what's been marked as people's, not people's, joint exhibit number 44, which I believe by stipulation would be admitted.
44 is received.
Do you recognize that item?
Yes, I do.
And how do you recognize it?
There are stickers on the container with the laboratory number on it and my initials.
And what is inside the box?
Inside of it is a 6-shot revolver.
And what did you do with respect to the revolver?
I screened it for possible blood, and those results were negative.
And did you also visually examine it?
Yes, I looked at it with a bright light, and I also examined the holster, and I did not observe any staining on the holster.
And was there any need to take DNA in this with respect to this particular item?
No.
Was it forwarded on to another unit for additional analysis?
Yes, it was sent on to the latent print unit.
Okay, I now want to direct your attention to report number 19. If you want to take that back. what were you asked to do in report number 19?
In report number 19, it is a crime scene report. The crime scene team was called out to the Cochran residence again and asked to go through the entire residence and look for any sign of any possible blood.
And is that in fact what you did?
Yes, that is what we did.
What time approximately did you arrive?
May I refer to my report?
Yes.
Thank you. We arrived at 9:53 a.m.
And this was on March 27th, 2015?
That is correct.
Your Honor, I would offer at this time joint exhibit number 41 and joint exhibit number 40. 40 are printed pictures of, very few, of items that were tested or swabbed either in the laboratory or at the scene. And item number 41 is a disc of the photographs that were taken when they executed the search warrant on the Cochran residence on March 27, 2015.
Mr. Shoki, this is a joint exhibit.
This is joint exhibit, correct.
40 and 41 are received.
So did you have another pre-scene briefing when you arrived?
Yes.
And your directions at that point in time or your tasks were to process the remainder of the residence?
Yes.
What, if anything, did you observe from your visual examination with respect to the residence this time?
It appeared that there were items taken out of the residence that were there previously. Clothing was gone, the dog kennel was gone. And then we viewed the entire residence with a bright light looking for any possible bloodstains, and several areas were tested.
And which areas were tested this time?
Every room on the second floor, the hallway on the second floor, the kitchen. The dining room was already processed, so that was not looked at. However, the living room was processed. Items were gone through in the basement, the entire rest of the residence. Maybe we can cut to the chase. What tested positive with your presumptive testing in this instance? There were positive presumptive test results on a comforter in the master bedroom, a pillow in the master bedroom, a comforter in the living room. There was staining on the door trim on the back door that tested positive, and there were also some hairs in the empty room on the second floor that were collected. And then there was luminol testing performed in that pantry and back door entryway, and on the stairs and on the entryway to the basement, and swabs were taken from the entryway to the basement.
I'm showing you slide number 1 of exhibit number 40. What are we looking at in this picture?
This is the entryway in the basement. The doorway to the stairs is to the left. And I don't know if you can see it, but there is blue Sharpie on the concrete. Those were areas that tested positive with luminol, and swabs were taken from that area.
Your Honor, may I publish just this slide to the jury?
Yes.
This is slide number 1 of exhibit 40.
I didn't quite hear your description of what you're seeing there. What is it?
This is the entryway to the basement.
What's on the floor and what did you do?
A Sharpie marker was used. We sprayed with luminol, and the positive reactions were circled with Sharpie. And swabs were taken from that area.
So swabs were taken from the area. Were any items taken back to the laboratory?
The hairs that we collected from the empty room were taken back. The tan comforter was taken. Swabs from the staining on the back door trim were also taken. The comforter and the pillow that tested positive for blood upstairs were also taken.
In record number 21, is that where you tested some of these items at the laboratory?
I'm sorry, what record?
Record number 21.
Record 20.
I'm sorry, that was not your record. Record number 22.
Record 20. Those items were tested in record 20.
I'm sorry.
Record 20?
Oh, they were all tested under record 20?
Yes.
Thank you. What did you do with these items once you got back to the laboratory?
They were further tested for possible blood and then subsequently for human blood.
And what, if any of them, were prepared for additional testing?
The red comforter tested positive for human blood, so a portion of that was sent forward for DNA. The stain that was on the back door trim also tested positive for human blood, so that was sent forward for DNA.
Now moving on to record 22. What item were you examining in record number 22?
A quilt was submitted by the investigating agency. It was found outdoors and it had looked like it had been out there for quite a while because it was dirty.
And was there any presumptive testing performed on that?
Yes, it tested negative for possible blood.
Record number 23. Were you presented with an item to examine in record number 23?
Yes, I was.
And what item were you presented with?
I was presented with a saw blade that appeared to be heavily damaged.
And on the screen, I'm going to show you a slide. This is slide number 6 of Exhibit 40. Do you recognize that item?
Yes, I do.
Is that the saw blade you were presented with in record number 23 to examine?
Yes.
What did you do with respect to any testing or processing on this saw blade?
Again, I viewed it with a bright light to view any visible staining. Because it was heavily damaged, I also viewed it under the stereoscope to get a better look at it. And any areas that I observed tested negative for possible blood.
And I'm showing slide number 8. What are we looking at in that picture?
This is a photo of the tip of the saw blade under the stereoscope.
And did you do any presumptive testing on this?
Yes, I did.
And did that also test negative?
Yes, I did.
And just so we're on track here. Your Honor, I have joint exhibit number 45, which is the saw, which I believe to be the saw blade. If I may approach the witness, we move for its admission.
Yes, 45 is received.
Do you recognize that item?
Yes, I did.
And is that the saw blade that you examined that day?
Yes.
I want to direct your attention now to record number 24. Did you examine some items in the laboratory with respect to record number 24?
Yes, I did.
And what items did you examine?
Pieces of wood from different areas of the front of the residence were submitted to me by the investigating agency. They were from the front door, the door jamb, areas like that. They were, she asked to have me test them for possible blood.
And was there blood identified on any of those items?
No, there was not.
Record number 28. What did you do with in this particular record?
This is another crime scene record. We received information and a request from Iron River Police Department to process a scene where they believe that Mr. Reagan was eventually located.
And do you know where that scene where the scene was located that you responded to?
It was on Pintoga Trail Road.
And was anyone present when you arrived at the scene?
Yes.
And who was present?
Chief Laura Frizzo was present. Mr. Niger from his private search and rescue company was there. There were members from the Iron County Sheriff's Department there, and there were also members, individuals there with, I believe they were cadaver dogs present.
And did you have a pre-scene briefing?
Yes. Yes, we did.
And so you arrived on scene. What was the first thing you did with respect to the scene?
We made contact with Chief Laura Frizzo, and she had already marked some pieces of evidence, so we went through the areas of the pieces of evidence that were already marked and documented those.
And those pieces of evidence that you documented, did those include a snuff can and some glasses?
Yes.
And pieces of plastic bags, dirt and debris?
Yes.
What about bones? Were there any bones there that you documented?
Yes, there were apparent bones that were flagged as well.
What were the other items that were documented?
May I refer to them?
Yes.
Thank you. There were several pieces of plastic located. There were additional apparent bones located. The area where a skull was located was flagged, but it was not present. There was also a bullet that was in an envelope that was marked as well. So those were all documented.
And was there a second snuff can as well?
Yes.
Did you take or collect this evidence and take it back to the crime lab?
Some of the evidence was already collected by the Iron River Police Department, but those areas were documented, and whatever they did not collect, the lab took back.
And that would include the snuff can and the glasses?
Yes.
Oh, actually, 2 snuff cans, the glasses, the pieces of black plastic bag and debris.
Yes.
And was that all that you did at that scene?
Yes.
Moving on to record number 30. Were these the items that you brought back to the laboratory from the Pintoga Trail scene?
Yes.
And you tested some of these items?
Yes, I did.
May I approach on it?
Yes.
This is joint exhibit number 48. We can move for admission. Do you recognize that item?
Yes, I do.
48's received.
And what is that item?
It is an envelope containing a snuff can that appeared to be weathered.
Could you do us a favor and open that, please? Show the jury the snuff can that you examined. What did you do with respect to this snuff can? And we also have on screen at this time slide number.
I viewed it with a bright light to see if I could see any blood staining. And then an area was swabbed for contact DNA to see if we could pick up any DNA on it.
And that's slide number 2 of 40. Was there any apparent blood staining?
May I refer to my notes?
Yes.
Thank you. I did not observe any apparent blood staining on that item.
And you did indicate that you swabbed it?
Yes, I did.
And what did you do with the swabs?
The swabs were cut and placed into an extraction tube, placed in a small metal envelope, and sent down to Grand Rapids for DNA.
And may I approach her?
Yes.
I'm presenting to you Joint Exhibit number 49, and I move for its submission at this time. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
What is that?
This is lab item LC1. It is pieces of metal that were circular in shape. It was identified as being a degraded tobacco can.
And could you show that to the jury as well, please?
Yes.
For the record, 49 is received.
And that, is it fair to say that item is so degraded it's falling apart?
Yes.
Okay. What did you do with respect to that tobacco can?
I viewed it with the light to see if I could find any staining. Some areas of suspected staining were swabbed, but tested negative for blood.
Right, Cochran?
Yes.
I'm showing you Joint Exhibit number 50. We move for its submission.
Indeed received.
Do you recognize Joint Exhibit number 50?
Yes, I do.
And what is that item?
A pair of eyeglasses that were located on the Pintoga Trail Road scene.
And would you please show that to the jury as well? Could you tell us what, if anything, you did with respect to item number 50 for processing?
I'm sorry, item number 50?
Exhibit number 50.
I viewed it with the light, and I noticed some staining. I swabbed it. It tested positive for possible blood. May I refer my notes? Thank you. It tested positive for possible blood, but negative for human blood. And so as a result, I swabbed the earpieces for contact DNA.
And did you forward those on to the Grand Rapids Laboratory for testing?
Yes, I did.
May I approach? I'm showing you what's been marked as Joint Exhibit number 51. I move for its submission at this time. Do you recognize those items?
Yes, I do.
What is that?
This is a paper bag containing a pair of forceps.
And could you please take that out of the packaging and show it to the jury?
51 is received.
Also on the screen, for the record, I have slide number 4 of Exhibit 40. And what process, if any, did you use on the forceps?
Again, I viewed them with a bright light, and I also viewed them under the stereoscope. I tested some areas for possible blood, and I actually obtained positive results, positive for human blood on the inside of the forceps.
So what did you do with the swabs from this item?
I took another sample, and I sent that down to Grand Rapids for DNA.
Thank you.
Did you collect those, or did they come from the department?
They came from the department.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm showing you what's been marked as Joint Exhibit number 67. Do you recognize the items inside of Joint Exhibit number 67? I'm also going to present you item number 66, which is a joint exhibit as well, and I'd move for admission of both of those. They kind of go hand in hand.
You can identify them before I receive them.
Item number 67, could you identify those for us?
67 are several containers supporting pieces of plastic.
Received.
And item number 66.
66 is a large paper bag containing plastic.
Okay, with respect to, and this is just by way of example so the jury can see what you examined, could you open up one of the items, the smaller items in 67, to show the jury what items you examined? Was there also dirt and debris included with these items?
Yes.
What did you do, or how would you process these types of items?
I sifted through dirt and debris and obtained the pieces of plastic. I viewed them with a bright light to see if I could find any sort of staining. And then I did presumptive testing if I found some. On some of the larger pieces, I also tested with luminol to see if I could find any possible blood staining.
And did you get any positives for the presumptive testing on any of those items?
Everything ended up coming back negative.
Did you also receive a wooden stair from Iron River Police Department in record number 30?
Yes, I did.
What did you do with respect to the wooden stair?
It was sprayed with luminol and then further tested for possible blood. I tested positive for possible blood but negative for human blood.
And the stair that you received, was it the unpainted stair that we observed in the photographs, or was it a different stair?
It was the unpainted stair.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Shoki.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are we doing?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you. Just to be clear, we talked about, I think we've used the terms interchangeably, I think item 30, record 30. Those numbers are basically your report numbers, correct?
Yes.
So report 30 wouldn't necessarily correspond to our exhibit 30 here.
That is correct,
Right, I
yes.
just want to make that very crystal clear for everybody. Now, as I understand the process, and I'm going to try, I did this yesterday with another witness, so I'm going to do the same thing with you, is if you're going to come to this room and it's a potential crime scene, you're going to go around and note things of interest, take pictures, things of that nature, is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
And perhaps this water bottle here, you're going to take a look at it, and if you think it has something to do with whatever you're investigating, first thing you're going to do is a presumptive test on it for fluids, correct?
Yes.
And, let's pretend we're looking for blood here. Okay? So the first thing you do is probably the TME or the luminol or the heme sticks, correct?
That is correct.
And again, these tell you if it's potentially blood or not potentially blood, if there's a stain on that water bottle, this water bottle. Correct?
Correct.
And again, it doesn't tell you if it's human or not human blood, it just tells you it could be blood, correct?
That is correct.
And do these various methods all have basically the same limitations as far as false positives and things that maybe will throw them off? Are they pretty much interchangeable between the TME, the hemosticks, and the luminol?
There are some differences, but yes, they all react with iron. So if there's iron in that, then yes, it will give a false positive, so yes.
You anticipated my next question because you said that metals would potentially cause a false positive, correct?
That is correct.
And we're in Iron County, correct?
That is correct.
And iron is presumably all around us, correct?
That is correct.
All right, so then the next thing you do with this water bottle, let's say you do TME on it. I'm not going to try to pronounce the full name of it. Let's say it comes back, the next thing you're going to do is look at hemotrace on it, correct?
That is correct.
And then that'll tell you if it's human blood or not, correct?
That is correct.
But it won't tell you whose blood or how long it's been there or how it got there, correct?
That is correct, yes.
For it to tell whose blood or perhaps how long, if they can tell that, they'd have to send it to the lab and do DNA and other tests, correct?
Right, that is correct.
So basically what you can tell us is with the presumptive test, if there's something that could be blood, and then with the hemotrace, if it's human blood, correct?
That is correct, yes.
And as far as your work, you can't get into the backstory of how, who, or when, correct?
That is correct, yes.
All right, I want to go through some of these items with you. I'm not going to go through the entire list. But when you processed Mr. Regan's car, again, it was negative for the presumptive test. Is that all the presumptive tests, all spots you checked? Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
And again, so that would indicate that there were no signs of potential blood, human or otherwise, in that vehicle.
That is correct, yes.
Okay. Next, we're going to move to Mr. Regan's apartment. You were in there, you took some photos, I believe, or someone on your team took some photos. I don't know if you exactly took the photos.
I did not take photos, but someone on my team did, yes.
Okay, very good. But you had the opportunity to observe the apartment, correct?
That is correct, yes.
And you said it looked like it was, I believe you said something to the effect of it was in a state of moving. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Now, was it tossed or rummaged through it all, or was it more of a, when you knew it was kind of an organized chaos? Would you say it was tossed or?
It was more of an organized chaos, yes.
Yeah, someone moving, so someone
Yes.
going their kitchen stuff with their kitchen stuff, and et cetera, correct?
Yes.
Wasn't drawers strewn everywhere or turned over or anything like that?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. And again, you did your presumptive test in there, and the spots that you checked, you didn't find any spots that potentially could have been human or other blood. Would that be fair to say?
That is correct, yes.
Thank you. And you went to the Cochran residence, and then again, someone was there, they took some photos, and you did your presumptive testing, correct?
That is correct.
And you had various items that came back that tested positive for the presumptive test, correct?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
You had several items that, when you did the presumptive test, I think probably the TME, that came back that potentially could be blood, correct?
The luminol was positive.
Luminol
Yes,
is what you did,
luminol
I'm
was-
sorry.
yes.
So the luminol is what
Yes.
you used at the
Yes.
Cochran residence.
Yes.
And again, luminol just tells you that it's potentially blood. Don't know if it's human or animal.
That's correct, and that's why we took it all back to the laboratory.
And you took a lot of items back to the lab, and most of them came back and didn't have any trace of human blood. Is that correct?
That is correct.
In fact, we had a handful of items that did come back with traces of human blood, and those items were just go through my notes here. It's like the red comforter, I can talk today, the forceps, and I believe there might have been another item, pillow. Did I miss something else? What else did I miss?
The back door trim.
Thank you. And again, that came back as human blood, correct?
That is correct, yes.
So we don't know whose, we don't know how long it's been there, we don't know how it got there, correct?
That is correct, yes.
You also did luminol on the truck, is that correct?
That is correct.
The truck was parked outside the Cochran residence,
Yes.
and you, when the luminol on there, you got some indication that there was potentially blood of some kind, correct?
We indicated it was a false positive reaction.
So again, you didn't think you think it was something in the atmosphere or something else that was...
Some sort of cleaner or smoke, because the vehicle did smell like smoke.
Okay, and that was on the interior of the vehicle, I presume, when you see the smoke, correct?
That is correct, yes.
How about anything on the exterior of the vehicle? Did you get luminol outside of the elements? I'm assuming probably not.
No, we did not.
Okay. And these items that were found at the scene where Mr. Regan's remains were presumably found, again, the snuff can, glasses, the plastic bags, you did the presumptive test on those, and they all came back. I think the glasses came back with a possible hit on those for the presumptive test.
They tested negative for human blood.
Yes.
Yes.
So those were the ones that came back with possible blood, but it wasn't human blood. Is that fair to say?
Yes, that is correct.
Animal blood, correct? Because we
Potentially, yes.
don't believe I have any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you, ma'am. You are excused and released from your subpoena. I trust you don't have a 5-minute witness.
I do not, Your Honor.
Members of the jury, we're going to take our recess. Again, my cautionary instructions about what you can discuss and with whom, and stay away from social media, and please don't do any of your independent investigations. All right, you're excused.
All right.